Hello, welcome back to Loutzen Academy. In last week's video, we did a tutorial with vinyl and willow charcoal, demonstrating soft charcoals and permanence gives artists the ability to not feel so pressured to create the perfect line. In this week's video, I decided to do more of an art blog style. I mentioned last week that after dropping out of art college, I took an 8-year hiatus, pursuing a different career. But during that time, I did work on some digital artworks using Procreate on iPhone, iPad 17 with the Apple Pencil. And I'm just going to be reviewing those digital artworks as well as the week for me and as an artist. I also wrote a Substack article published on Loutzen Academy. It's under the same handle as this YouTube channel. And it's going into artists being intentional in the way they post on social media. It's called Rewire Your Posting Habits to Become an Intentional Artist. And throughout the video, I might bring in some points that I brought during the article. But if you're interested, just go into Substack under Loutzen Academy, and that's my first article. We're going to be looking over 3 artworks that I did during this 8-year hiatus from art, but typically I was just drawing on a tablet. I usually like being physical with my artwork, especially when I'm creating larger portraits and larger art pieces, using my whole body to create the images. So going after COVID, losing the art studio or losing access to the art studio, I just switched over to digital works. And now that I have more time with work, I'm gonna start moving towards back to my physical artwork. So let's get started. I have my cafecito today. It is just a double shot espresso with some honey, and we'll get started. These videos are going to go by really fast. I did a time lapse feature in Procreate and I didn't realize how fast they were really gonna go, so I'll probably just be speaking over the video. Might not be able to keep up with exactly what's going on, but we'll see how this works out. So for the first image, it will be Our Lady of Sorrows. It's an image that I wanted to create just to practice portraiture. I used Procreate materials, brush styles that are just a pencil and the charcoal feature, just to try to give it more of a natural look. I know on working with an iPad and an Apple Pencil, the texture on the screen is very smooth and it glides really well, and a lot of artists don't like that. They like to feel the texture of a pencil moving across the paper. So I know on Amazon they do have screen protectors that gives off that texture. But for me, I was just fine with the way the texture was. So for the image itself, I didn't use any references. I grew up in a Catholic household, so it's a lot of this imagery I seen growing up. So I was just trying to recreate that imagery from memory in a way. I'm sure there's been a lot of statues and icons, a lot of but portraits that I've seen growing up. Over here, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with her hair. If I wanted to veil her or create a crown. So over here you could see me go back and forth with deciding, and I think in the end I just decided to go with a black background, so that's okay. I just really wanted to try out the Procreate features, trying to recreate a portraiture that may look a little bit more in the natural pencil and graphite paper look. And over here I'm trying to figure out what I want to do for the background too, because I totally gave up on trying to figure out the crown thing. And then for this second portrait, it's a self-portrait of me when I was 19. I used to have a septum, and I will tell you the story about it afterwards. But I first want to say I don't think tracing is a sin, especially if the artist already knows the fundamentals of proportion and trying to recreate an artwork from life. I do think that tracing could be beneficial if your focus is on something else. So I traced a photo of myself when I was 19, posing. And for this image, I just wanted to recreate basically an oil painting with just the layering and just trying to use the brush as if it was an oil painting and trying to blend everything over with a glazing technique, quote unquote. So with my septum piercing, I got it pierced when I was 15 in the bathroom at my high school. And my friend at that time was the one that did it for me. And it was very unsanitary. It was not clean. I don't know. I do not know how I didn't get infected. But the funny thing is that I would try to flip it inside my nose because my growing up in a very strict household, we're not allowed to have piercings. So the first day that my friend pierced it in the bathroom, I had to flip it up right away because we did it right after school. And there was already swelling and pain, just like from the piercing itself. And I had to like flip the piercing inward. And eventually I was able to do it. It was very painful. And for a couple months, I was able to hide it from my mom. Like I'll just flip it out when I would go to school, and then flip it back in by sixth period. But one day she picked me up early from for some reason, and I forgot to flip it in, and she like seen it, and she was so angry. And she told me to take it out, so I took it out. And luckily I did, because when I got home, like my dad already knew, and he like went to pinch my nose as if to like rip it out, but luckily it wasn't in my nose anymore, and it was so painful. So I got it re-pierced when I was 18 in a tattoo shop, and I suggest everyone just to get it pierced professionally. Don't let your other 15-year-old friend pierce your nose in a high school bathroom. And after getting it pierced the second time, people say it tends to hurt more because the scar tissue from the first piercing was there. But I think it was about the same. And I had it for maybe 2, 3 years during college. And then when I started working outside of college, one of the career I was pursuing wasn't going to be able to, it wasn't sanitary to have the piercing out when I was in that career, and I just decided to take it out, and I never got it re-pierced. So that's a quick little tangent, but just thought to share that. And so right here I'm using the second reference just to look at this lighting and the skin tone. Over here I'm just blending out the face a lot, and I created a background just to bring the focus to the portrait itself. Not sure if you guys can tell, but I'm trying to get into the detail work of the face, adding deeper shadows. I felt like at that point it was looking flat, so just adding more and more shadowing helped that out. Yeah, and then I used just a quick little reference just to recreate lace. I did it very loosely, nothing too intricate in that specific portrait. But yeah, and added more highlights. So I'm taking a break in the video just to appreciate some mundane things in my day-to-day life that I found beautiful or interesting. This goes into hand in hand with the Substack post I created earlier, where as artists we should be intentional in the way we interact with social media and platforms. I believe that the algorithms kind of forces artists to create a bunch of quantity works over quality works. And it's a call for artists to just slow down and appreciate the art making process, because it's the problem solving during the art making process that matters more than the end product in itself. And I do believe that just seeking the sublime in the mundanity of your life is an expression of art in itself. And it's a reminder that we may not be as interesting as we want to be, and that's okay. A lot of the artists that we appreciate throughout history didn't have interesting lives either. They created between their mundane tasks. Some of them probably wrote their greatest pieces while cleaning the dishes, folding the laundry, and in a way, just trying to appreciate the mundanity of our life. We'll be able to translate it in our artwork to like really slow down. I think even if you post with intention, especially with long form content, it might not get the engagement that you want, the subscribers you want as quickly as you want. But I also believe that the way we post is in a way contributing to the culture's common mind. So if we're over here posting quantity over quality work, even if you don't think anyone's gonna see it, you're still contributing to the common mind. And I think there is a need to just slow down and appreciate what we see in our lives, to slow down and appreciate just the modernity of our life, and to translate that into our artwork and our art making process and the way we interact with these social media platforms that values short form content that gives dopamine. So before we get into our last video of the day, I want to go over some books I read in 2025 and the books I'm looking forward to reading in 2026. A lot of the books I read in 2025 were rereads. I read a lot of them in high school, and for some reason I started reading a lot more. And a lot of these books were just something that I needed to reread so I can remember them. So starting off in 2025, I don't have this first book right now in hand. I let one of my friends borrow it. She's a writer and she wanted to write a biography, and so this is one of my favorite biographies of that I know of that I've ever read. It's called Wild Swans. I'll place the image right here. And it basically goes over three generations of women in China as it shifts politically. It started off with the great great grandmother and ended with the writer herself leaving that time period. And it's just a beautiful book. I just love the way the writer writes about her family, and it's mostly on the woman's side of the family that we see the struggle and what they did to survive during the changing political climate. The second book I read is one of my favorites. It's a really good movie as well. It's Anna Karenina. It's a pretty hefty book, and I just love this book. There's just so much to say about it, but I feel like it deserves its own video on its own. I actually watched the movie first, and I love Keira Knightley. I love Aaron Taylor Johnson. I guess I don't love him that much if I don't remember his name. But my husband watched it with me and he hated it. He hated it so much, but only because of it's it's very drama-esque and filled with bad morals. So at one point throughout the movie, he asked if she gets what she deserves, and I was like, just wait till the end because she does get what she deserves. But this is one of my favorite books. I love Tolstoy. I love the way I just love the characters. They're so just their thinking patterns are so interesting to me, and it feels so realistic. The second or the third book I read during 2025 is Wuthering Heights. I read it in high school and I had to reread it for the 2026 film in coming out in February, I believe. So I'm hoping for the best. I wasn't a big fan of the casting. I feel like a lot of the common A-list casting, we just see this five same actors and actresses for almost every movie, and this specific book deserved its its own cast, in my opinion, a cast with unknown actors and actresses, not Margot Robbie as Catherine and Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff. But I'm gonna just, you know, try my best to watch it without coming in with that mindset. I did see Jacob Elordi in Frankenstein, and at first I wasn't too sure about it, but he blew me away. I love the his. I just his eyes just showed so much pain and emotion as the monster, and he did such a great job for that specific film. So I'm hopeful for this, but it doesn't sound too promising, especially because Heathcliff is supposed to be a darker skin, and that was like a main point of this book. One of the main points of this book was they didn't know where he came from, but he was different because of his skin color. So I think that took away from that specific aspect of the book, but we'll see. I'm very hopeful. And I actually got this version of the book because I tend to really destroy my books when I read them. I'm terrible. And when I really, really like a book, I want the nicer version afterwards. And it's terrible. And I think I just want to see the pretty version, if that makes sense. And then have the other version where I could write in and just read, read as I will it. But yeah, this has a little bit of purple in the sides, and I just really like this version of the book. So moving on from oh, and with Wuthering Heights, the poster Gone with the Wind. And there is a lot of parallels, I would say, between Heathcliff and Rhett Butler and Catherine and Scarlett. And I know Gone with the Wind is a controversial because the writer itself was like a Southern sympathizer, and you see the main character, her life just is turned upside down during the Civil War, and it's a lot of nostalgia of what it was like before the war, but on the South side. So it with that in mind, I think it's important to like keep that in mind, but also you should be able to enjoy some films and books without attaching the writer's intention to it. But with that being said, I love Gone with the Wind. I love the movie. Rhett Butler has my heart, and I just with Wuthering Heights using some of the Gone with the Wind scenery, it does get me a little bit excited. Just easy to please me, I guess. Okay, after Wuthering Heights, I read The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was a short story. I imagined it to be a lot longer, but actually the story itself only came up to I think to this point. And then the rest of the book is more short stories of Gothic literature. And yeah, I really did enjoy this book. It was a quick read though, and I finished it on the beach, so it's a little bit messy too. And then I read Phantom of the Opera. Like Anna Karenina, I watched the film first and loved it, and then decided to get the book. So I actually got the book. I read the book from the library, and then my husband got me this for Christmas. So this is a bigger version of the book. It has other tales too, but it was surprisingly an easy read. I I was surprised because I thought it was just gonna be it was gonna have older languages, and I thought it wasn't gonna be as easy to read, but I read it pretty quickly, and I do like that you get more of Raoul's perspective in the book. Um, sweetheart, just a total sweetheart throughout the book, but yeah, you see more of Raoul's perspective, and I mean, it's like a horror, like legit a horror film for him. Like this is terrible. Like the girl that he loves is just it's like pulling his heartstrings left and right, and you don't see that much in the movie. You see more of the better side of their romantic journey in the movie, but in the book you see a little bit more of a push and pull, and you start feeling bad for Raoul. And then the last book I read for 2026, correction, 2025, was Dracula. And I read this book again. I read it for the first time in high school, and I had to read it again because it was during the winter, and I think Gothic literature is meant for the winter. I know a lot of horror and Gothic is meant for Halloween in the month of October, but something about the winter feeling, the winter season makes it feel like horror for me. Also theology. For some reason, winter is meant for uh romantic gothic or horror and theology. And I don't know why, it just feels that way for me. But Dracula, I just love this book. And all I want to say is be the American that Bram Stoker believes you are. Because my man, Quincy Morris, was probably like the best character in the book. And he was just the one person that everyone looked towards to be proactive about things. He was over here shooting bats out of midair because he was worried about what if any of them is could be Dracula. So he was over here with his Winchester just shooting up in the air compared to everyone else who wanted to be polite and proper. He was the first one to be like to just go after him in my opinion. And I think he was just probably the best character. And sorry, it's a spoiler alert, but this book's been out for a very long time. And he was the sacrificial lamb. They had to kill him off towards the end. They had to kill the best characters there is. But he was such a great character. And just, I love how it was so easy to convince him what was going on. Like all the other characters were needed more proof, they needed more reasoning. When Dracula was out and about causing havoc with Lucy, and Quincy Morris, the moment you tell him there's a man out there just sucking the life out of the woman he loves, he did not even hesitate. He was like, "Okay, what are we doing?" So just be the American that Bram Stoker believes we are. And that was a long time ago, and that a lot of things changed. So maybe if we look up Quincy Morris again, he can he can just give us some good values and morals in this life. So that was it for the 2025 books I read and got a little bit passionate about Quincy Morris, but I just think he was a great character. The 2026 books I have right now, and speaking of theology, is Paradise Lost by John Milton. This is gonna be a very slow read for me. I do want to take my time and annotate with this, and one of the content creators, I would say, her name it's Gutenberg Bible. They are doing a slow read for the year, and it's kind of cool because you can participate in a book club and just go by the through the chapters with them throughout the year. So I'm looking forward to that. For my second list of books I have is going to be The Idiot, and I also order White Knights as well. I read Crime and Punishment in high school, and I think that's something I'll need to reread again. I don't think I grasped the depth of it, but also heard this is a really good book, and White Knights as well. And then I do want to read East of Eden as well, probably after Paradise Lost, but I couldn't find it. I remember reading Mice of Men by Steinbeck in high school, so I'm sure East of Eden would be very good as well. But ordering it, I couldn't find it on the website. I used Thrift Books, and I couldn't find it anymore. So I don't know if I want to go to Barnes and Nobles to buy it or just probably get it from the library. And then I have Rebecca by Daphne. Read the last name because I don't want to butcher that. I got this as a recommendation from the YouTube channel Milk Fed by Caitlin Richardson. She really like sold this book to me, and she has a lot of other good book recommendations, but this is the one that I really wanted to read. I might read this during the springtime though. I don't know why. It just feels very spring to me, but we'll find out. And that specific channel I do like. She has a lot of uh, good recommendations for perfumes, and I didn't realize how important perfume could be with the senses. Right, I only have one, but she has like a lot of perfumes for every season and every feeling, and I just find that interesting. But I'll just stick to my one perfume for now. And then my last book, I believe I have on the 2026 list is gonna be this big boy. It's going to be War and Peace by Tolstoy as well. Um, just wanted to read another one of his books, but we'll see how long that takes. It looks like a big book as well. So that does it for my quick little literature insert. I know this is supposed to be an art blog, but I figure that a lot of books that we read do have an impact on the way we create art and the way we live our life. So I figured that could be inserted in a little art blog section. So we're gonna be at the last digital artwork of today. This one's gonna be more of a character design inspiration. I was going for a ogre warrior, and I'm using the the reference photo just to get the layout of her pose. I really enjoy her pose, and just using other art references to try to recreate the lighting. During this period, I was really interested in character design. I really felt very inspired by Boris Vallejo and Frank Frazetta. And then I also really enjoyed while watching The Mandalorian towards the end credits how they would show the concept art. So I was really into that at one time. But I do like creating a character art. I just never really fully pursued that. I think it was just something to do for fun during that time period I was going into my digital artworks. I think at one point too, one of my college friends was really into Magic the Gathering. It has these cards that has artworks on it, and a lot of them were oil painted, and I thought that was really cool that they had living artists like creating these artworks that went on the Magic cards. So I thought that was really interesting, and I really enjoyed that. I really enjoy character design, concept art. I just never really got into the animation aspect or the animation side of being in college. I was more in the fine arts side, and I just wish we could do it all. Well, you know what? I think we could do it all, but maybe not at the same time. I think we could have everything we want in our life, but maybe not at the same time. I think different time periods calls for different things. So yeah, so working through this ogre warrior, you could see that at this point I'm trying to figure out what to do with her hair, and for some reason, same with the first digital piece I've had, I just couldn't decide what I wanted to do with the hair, and I think that's like one of my biggest weaknesses is dealing with the hair. So this whole time you could just see me just trying to, make it look nice, but I just decided to just go with the black, just the all black, and I think that looks nice. It really contrasts out with the rest of the portrait or the design, and I just, it makes it look interesting. But yeah, I think I do suggest to look into Boris Vallejo. He was heavily, I believe he was inspired by Frank Frazetta as well, but he did a lot of these oil paintings of fantasy art, and so he did a lot of Conan the Barbarian, or just any other prehistoric art, I would say. And I really love his oil paintings because the colors that he used were not muted. A lot of oil paintings that we've seen back then, they used a little bit more of a natural materials, so a lot of the paintings came out muted. And then so like me studying art as trying to get better as an artist, I was always looking at the masters and seeing the way that they work with the muted color palettes. The colors just popped to me, and I was just used a lot of pastels, which it's really hard for me to see a lot of art oil paintings using pastels, but the way he used them during that time period was just amazing to me. And so I think Boris Vallejo is a good person to look into. Frank Frazetta is like, I don't even have to say anything about Frank Frazetta. Everyone knows Frank Frazetta's artwork and Frank Frazetta's girls. But I just think those two are great for creating these character designs. So that's all I have today. Last week was more of a tutorial, and this week I wanted to do more of like an art blog, just speaking into the camera and just talking about artworks and inspiration for what I try to be as an artist. For next week, I do plan on doing more of a tutorial video, just kind of similar to the first one. I'm not sure if I want to flip and flop between deciding to do like an art blog one week and talk about just talk about literature, art history, or just showing you like some of my art books that I draw inspiration from, and then doing another week to do like an actual tutorial. So next week I'm gonna look into values, and I'm gonna use my dog Kai as a reference photo. So thank you for joining in, and I hope you enjoyed the video.